I haven't watched the part 2 yet. I've just been busy.
Sorry, say that again. The voice talked over you.
I haven't watched part 2 yet, so I haven't seen what the second half of that is.
Well, I think we covered it possibly in the first part, and I may have not been explicit in saying document.ready is gone, just that the page init was preferred now. But I would like you all to go ahead and have this downloaded, open it up, and open it in an editor, and open the index page in your browser. So from here on out, I'm not sharing my screen. I'm not showing you any graphics. We're going to be looking at our own machines, and I'll be talking you through some code. I think this approach is best for this particular activity because it forces you to do some work on your own, and when you get tactile with it, I think it reinforces the concepts that we're talking about. So get those files open. I will open them on my own machine, and we'll start talking through them. Let me reiterate for the people watching the archive. This is just a special session of the ASD Wimba for June 2012. Download the code that you see in the link on this slide, and we'll be talking through some of that code. So shout out in text when you have the code open. And you got it running in your browser too. You can see the index. Awesome. And Nathan, are you with us?
Opening it right now.
Okay. All right. So what you should see is it's just taken straight from the jQuery mobile site. This is just one of their sample pages. I think they even provide this dummy data for you. So we see a list view with 3 entries, and then I've made sure there's some buttons in there that we can use to navigate to other pages. The navigation within a jQuery app is a lot different than a regular website. And that's because jQuery mobile relies a lot on AJAX, and we're going to learn about AJAX in week 2. You'll be doing some AJAX calls yourself. But what jQuery mobile does, as soon as it loads one page, it parses your document and grabs everything that it will need for any page that will be showing on your app. So it's ready at the drop of a hat. So when we've loaded this page, jQuery Mobile has actually done the work for us, gone out there and grabbed page 2 and our pop-up, and it has it in reserve waiting for us to request those pages. In a regular website, the browser would just wait until we click a button to navigate over to something else, and then it would look for that data for us. So if you look in the main.js, I think that's the one. No, sorry, read.js. R-E-A-D. Let me turn on my line numbers, and I'm going to actually refer to line numbers. So if you don't see them in your editor, see if you can turn them on now. All right, so line 4 in read.js has me selecting with jQuery the ID of 1. So that #1 means grab whatever item it is in index that has that ID. And it just so happens that that is a data role page of 1 that actually is my home page. And I think when you started doing JQM, you were using the word home to identify that first page that loads. You don't have to. I just chose to name mine 1. Everybody with me on that? You see the 1.on?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Where 1.6.4 of jQuery and 1.7 differ is that .on. And I know Nathan's heard me harp on this a lot. 1.6.4 doesn't use on. Exactly, Max. It uses bind. Bind doesn't work in 1.7. You have to use .on. So that's the one hang-up where I see students get into trouble switching between the two jQueries. So we are doing a .on because we are using 1.7.2, I believe. And then we're checking for page init. And this is specific to jQuery Mobile. And I want to give you a link to the jQuery Mobile documentation. Let me flip over to another browser.
I think I got it if you want.
Oh, yeah, go ahead and paste it in. That's Mary Ann, y'all, if y'all don't know.
Hello.
If you haven't fallen in love with the jQuery Mobile documentation, it has gotten better in the past few months, and it does provide you some good information. So know it, love it, live it.
It is hating on me and won't let me type anything. So carry on.
I got it.
Hold on, I got it.
Perfect.
All right, so that is a link on scripting pages with jQuery Mobile. And it talks just about what we were just talking about, the document.ready, and how it's not good anymore and how page init is better. It also talks about page create versus page init, and they are recommending page init is the best. So I'm not even going to ever show you page create. So what that call does, the .on page init, is almost identical to document.ready. It's jQuery's way of just testing to see that that page, the page with the ID of 1, has loaded. I was talking over somebody. Does somebody have a question? Or maybe you're copying and pasting.
It says .live in mine.
Oh, did you download this like about 2 hours ago or something?
I did.
Okay. I made some updates since then.
No problem.
You could just really change it to .on and it should work fine.
It's okay. I've been playing with the .on, .live, .die, .off, everything all for 2 days now, so I'm good with that.
Great. Okay. So the rest of this, you should be familiar with .on page init, and then that thing, that function, just pop quiz question. What is that function called that doesn't have a name? And that's the hint. Doesn't have a name.
So, empty function.
Close. Any other guesses?
Anonymous.
That's exactly right. It is an anonymous function. Occasionally I see somebody trying to name that function get my stuff and parens. You can never call it with its name, so there's no reason to put a name there. It is anonymous. It's only going to run in this one time, and you can never recall it again. So if you wanted to put name functions within the curly braces here, you could, but where you call it right after the page init is always going to be anonymous.
Is it the same with the click too? Is it? Can I call a normal function after click?
You can. You would just have the function name, and I believe the click will not let you pass any parameters. I think that's correct. If you wanted to pass parameters, you would have an anonymous function and then put your named function inside the anonymous and pass parameters to it. But typically you see the dot on, click, comma, and then call my function, closing paren.
Sorry to jump ahead.
No, that's fine. So line 5 has a console log, and if you're not living and loving console logs, please do so in this class because they can save you. It's the best recommendation I have for debugging.
So is the idea here for every page that we have in our HTML to have the factory call a page in it for each page, and then to have the functionality that we need inside of each one?
Exactly. It's you can call it encapsulation. What we need to do every time we're calling every time we have a new page, we want to grab all the JavaScript for that page and have it contained within a check for that page being live. If you have code that needs to run on multiple pages, we can get it outside the page init check. But if you start encapsulating this way and you have all your form, if you have all your form function calls within your form page init check, then they will only run on your form page, and they won't be running willy-nilly on pages that you don't need it for. It's a lot easier for troubleshooting as well. You can comment out an entire block of code because you know it's not going to run on the page that you're debugging at that moment. So if you take a look at the bigger picture in this read.js, you can see that I do the ID of 1, and then I close that out on line 42. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the to.on and the pop-up.on. So those are for separate pages. And I want you to go over to your browser now and reload that index page and take a look at the console log. Make sure you have console up as you reload the page. Somebody tell me what you see when you hit refresh.
I have a list, but I think it's because I've already moved my comments out of place.
Okay.
So we're just refreshing page 1?
Yep, just refresh page 1 and tell me what you see in the console.
Nothing else comes up.
You're not seeing page 1 loaded?
It loaded the first time, but when I refresh, it doesn't give me that message again.
That is the problem. When you do a page init check, all your content there is only going to run the first time that you load the page. Now this page is cached, and it's not going to revisit everything that we need unless we have functions in there that we call later on. So if you were to grab that local URL and go over to another browser, see if you can get the console log up again.
I have page 1 loaded, and then it says save item 0, save item 1, save item 2.
Did you click a button that says get local storage? No, no, that runs automatically. Never mind.
Well, I did this exercise earlier by myself, and I've clicked on it a few times, but I have so many other windows open that I really don't want to close the browser, so.
Okay. All right, so in a new browser, you should see page 1 loaded. And here is the heart of this demonstration. Go ahead and scroll down the page and find the button to link to page 2. Should say show page 2. Click on that while keeping an eye on the console. Anybody got a, does anybody have a new message?
Page 2 loaded.
Woot, exactly. That's what it's supposed to do. Click on back to page 1. Notice again, there is no new console message. And then click on show page 2 again, a second time. Anybody get an updated message? No. Page 2 has now been loaded to cache, and it's run. So it's done its thing, and it's not calling our functionality again. So this causes a problem with our apps, because if there is code that we want to rerun, or if we want to refresh this page, we're going to have to do a little extra work. It would be the same thing with the, if you click the button, a show page pop-up on page 1. The first time you do that, it should say pop-up page loaded. Back to page 1, no message again. So let's start playing with this code and see what we can make it do. Pulse check here. Does everybody get what I'm getting at here? Why we're discussing this topic? Okay. Because this will be important to your lives as you progress in this CRUD functionality. But if you ever revisit JQM again in your professional lives, if they haven't changed anything about it in the next 2 years, which I can't say they won't, back in the read.js, line 7 for me is a / and an asterisk. Go ahead and take those two symbols out. And then we'll take out the closing on line 19, the asterisk and /. Save that, and now we've got a new block of code. And I'd like one of you to read that to me. Somebody tell me what line 9 is doing.
It's making an empty list.
Almost correct. It's not necessarily creating the list. It's grabbing a list and emptying it. So my UL already exists, and it's using the jQuery factory. It's just throwing in the tag name of UL, and it's going to grab any UL on this page and empty it out. So if I were to have multiple unordered lists on this page 1, they would all be empty at this point. So that's some jQuery code right there that is very useful if you are to write to a list when you start reading from your app. All right.
I'm sorry. Is one of our goals to populate our JSON onto our HTML somehow with the DOM? I mean, because we didn't do that before. We just used to kind of view the local storage and it would populate on the body, but it wouldn't be contained at all. No encapsulation.
It wasn't encapsulated in any given function or page check, but you were putting it into a list, correct?
No, not at all. I mean, it was kind of in list format, but we did that all with the JavaScript. It was like the way that I've been working on this all day, but like we've completely rewritten it to make it populate. It never existed in any HTML. It was all dynamically created with the JavaScript we wrote.
Correct. And the HTML that I have here is just a sample. When we first loaded page 1, you see 3 items. That was just me putting in a placeholder to show you that there was a list there. But yes, previously you've been creating from scratch.
So our goal is to be able to make this on a page of its own, so I can use it like a catalog.
Absolutely. And when we get into, I think your week 3 assignment, it's actually going to be reaching out to a database and pulling that information. Instead of pulling it from local storage, you're going to be pulling from a database and populating your page. This particular, the way I have this running, yeah, Matt, CouchDB, that's the one. The way I have this running would work for your apps. You probably don't want to use this particular type of list, but with the UL empty, I am essentially making a blank list that I can populate from scratch. So it would work for me to pull information from CouchDB at this moment and start putting it in. So originally when we were looking at page 1, we had 3 items in our list. I want you to go ahead and save where we removed the comments. Now we have that line 9, the empty, and then starting at line 11, we actually have, we're creating something and adding it to the list. So refresh your page in your browser and see what you get. Somebody tell me what you're seeing in your list now.
Just one list item.
Exactly. So we emptied the list, and then starting at line 11, I just created one item. Where this could be handy, having it hard-coded into your HTML and then emptying it out and adding new stuff. If you were to open the index.html in your editor, let me do that now. In the index.html, you can see that I have just copied one of these list entries and pasted it into my JavaScript. I had to encapsulate it with the $sign to call jQuery. I put a paren to start the jQuery factory. I put a single quote to say that everything that follows is going to be some code that I want to enter. And then basically I separated the lines with some pluses. You know how to do that, to concatenate a bunch of information. So what I've done basically is set up my HTML exactly how I wanted it with hard-coded data, and I was able to get it to look exactly like I want it to look. I did all my design stuff without having to worry about populating that list at first. So now I have the HTML formatted how I know that I like it like that. I'm using that format and just pasting it into the factory to say, this is how I want my stuff to look. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we're still using hard-coded data here in line 11. But you know from reading your local storage for months that you can concatenate variables into this. You can stop the factory at the list divider quote angle bracket and put another quotation mark, a plus, and then read in from local storage or whatever that date that you want to show there. Put another plus and start that span class. So in that way, you can force it to look exactly like you'd like instead of having to go through one item at a time and say, okay, I want to make a paragraph. Append that paragraph. Okay, now in that paragraph, I want to do this. Now append that to the paragraph. Mike demonstrates this in one of your videos this week, just lumping in a bunch of HTML. And it may be a little hacks and not the best practice when you get into huge applications. But for your purposes now, for learning this stuff and getting comfortable with it, I really like this method because then you get a really pretty result and you get to learn exactly how to get this dynamic data in there. So yeah, Max, you like that method?
Yeah, I like that a lot better than actually, creating it with all the JavaScript. I think, doing some of the append stuff, just you can get really lost in some of that.
Yeah, the make sublist li. I still have that here in the read.js, but I wanted to show you this big chunk of code because that's something that you can always fall back to if you don't want to do it piecemeal. So if you're looking at read.js again, we just talked about that line 11 through 15. Line 18 is very important. Have you seen .listView refresh before? And I'm not asking Nathan because I know he has.
Nope. That was the first.
All right.
Isn't ListView the JQM class assignments?
Absolutely. That's a data role that we assign to our unordered list to tell jQuery Mobile, hey, we want you to take care of making this pretty. So this is a JQM list view. This statement is going to be really important for your apps this month. What's going on here? Actually, let's just see it in action. Go ahead and comment out line 18. Just put 2 forward slashes in front of it. Save that and rerun it in your browser, or refresh, reload. Tell me what you see there.
It lost a bunch of format.
Yeah, it just looks like an ugly list, right? Everything's bumped up against my right border, and it's just a bunch of linked, just links. The date's not the link. Everybody see that? We lost all our jQuery Mobile. Yes? Okay. What's happened here is the page has loaded. The page 1 has loaded. It ran all its JQM to beautify the page, and then after the page ran and was beautified, we went in and appended something. And it got appended, and it's there. But we didn't tell jQuery Mobile to rerun. So it thinks that it's done messing with your DOM. And we didn't tell it that we actually messed with it again, and so it needs to correct our style. So that is what line 18 is for. Go ahead and uncomment line 18, the ul.listview.refresh, and let's see how it looks. And somebody tell me if I start going too fast here.
It goes back to normal.
Yeah, it's beautiful, right? It's jQuery Mobile. So if you ever see that problem, now you will know when you're working on your own code and you see plain HTML lists, you'll know, do this list view refresh. Problem with this is you have to have good formatting on the code that you've added, or the list view refresh won't work. If your jQuery Mobile tags aren't right, if you don't have the list view assigned correctly, if you have a unordered list inside of an unordered list, sometimes that won't work. So you want to have one UL to refresh. You can have multiple ULs on a page, but if that's the case, we need to select by an ID or something similar and not select all the ULs on a page. So I think that takes care of what I wanted to say about that. Let's go on to the Get Local Storage button. That code in read.js starts on line 21. Go ahead and in your browser, click the button for Get Local Storage. So you should see a slightly less interesting looking list, but this is my data that I was using for my Ninja app, and by clicking that, I was loading some information in for you. Actually, it's already loaded in. We're reading it out for you and making the list dynamically. So that was my example for you. Going back to what you saw in VFW, doing the make sub list and make sub LI. So I wanted you to have a copy of that code taken from VFW and assimilated to the jQuery mobile way of thinking. And you can see, again, I'm doing just a for loop, going through everything that I got from local storage and using a list view refresh at the end. Make sense to everyone? Either way you want to go works fine for me as long as it shows up. Cool. What do we want to talk about next? Anybody have any questions on this? All right, then.
I'm sure I have questions. I just, can't think of one.
As you start working on this on your own, I'm sure you'll come up with some questions, but it's kind of hard when I give you the code here. Next thing, I want you to take out the comment / on line, I think it's 43, 44. And take out the closing asterisk / on 53. So just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, what do you have on, what line is your var to change page?
46.
46, okay. Matt, if you're not on 46, okay, you are. Okay, great. Don't want to confuse anyone. All right, somebody tell me what's going on in that first line, var to change page. Not a trick question, very simple.
Should change page function.
That it is. We are making a function. We're passing in information called toPageID. That's our argument. And we are using jQuery Mobile's change page method. Change page is really helpful for reloading pages for us. You'll see line 50 ends up giving you a reload page true. This is just some data that we're passing to the change page method to tell it that we do indeed want to redo this page and recall the jQuery mobile. Don't take anything from the cache. Do everything over again.
So it's window.reload.
Yes.
Awesome. That is awesome.
Good. I'm glad you like it. So where are we calling to change page? Where do I have that in here? Aha, it's under pop-up. So line 61 has another block comment. Take out that / asterisk. And the one on 68. So now when our pop-up page loads, it'll do our console log pop-up page loaded. And then it does some jQuery factory stuff that you may have not seen before. href equals #1. Anybody have a guess on what that means, that statement in the factory?
Targets the link.
Exactly. It's just looking for an A element, and it's saying this A element that I want you to select for me has to have the attribute of href that is equal to #1. So it's the link to the home page. That makes sense to everyone? I think it's mentioned very briefly in one of Mike's videos this week. This is a good way to target all of your homepage links. If you have a header that has a link to the homepage and you want it to reload every time somebody clicks home, this is a good method. So we're binding it by doing a .on. So anytime anybody clicks this link to the homepage, it's going to run this anonymous function. And I'm passing it in the E. Does anybody remember the E from VFW?
Event data.
Exactly. So we're preventing the default. We're saying, hey, don't go to 1. I know you want to go to page 1. The A reference, yes, means to go to 1, but don't do it. Instead, do this console log for me, and then run the function toChangePage with the argument 1. So let's go ahead and make sure you saved the read.js and go ahead and refresh your browser. So in our browser, we should see still just the one list item because we didn't click the Get Local Storage. See our buttons. And in order to get this to run, we need to click on Show Page Pop-up. So go ahead and click that bottom button. Make sure in your console log that you see a pop-up page loaded. I think we have a fresh console, a fresh browser, so it hasn't seen this pop-up page yet. And there should be a button on the pop-up that says Back to Page 1. I think this button is made as an anchor tag with an href of 1. So let's click on the button and see what it does. It works! Oh my God! This is a very simple example, but I wanted to make sure you guys got this concept down. The console log runs. This is a great troubleshooting method. Whenever you want to make sure that one of your functions is getting called, put a console log in. So I know that the line 63, that anonymous function, I know it got called because I console logged it. Just a second, I'm testing this out in Firefox, making sure I have the same behaviors. Out of curiosity, what browsers are you all using for testing? Nice. All of them is the main three? Okay. Yes, the Holy Trinity. If we were in PC, then IE would be one of them, but we're not, yay. What I want to say here is, let me think. Warning about Chrome. When you get into week 2 of ASD, you're going to be doing some AJAX calls. There is a brief mention in one of our videos about a origin null policy that runs in Chrome. This may prevent you from doing an AJAX call and reading in data outside your app. If this happens and Chrome fails to read your data in week 2, try another browser. Don't count on Chrome. I don't take off points for this. because there is a complicated workaround that you don't need to know at this point. So Safari and Firefox should let you get away with it. Okay, let's see. Do we want to talk about any questions on this? Okay.
Okay, so you have a read.js and a main.js. Is that normal?
Yeah, well, I'm not calling both. If you look at the index at the bottom there, I'm only using the read for right now.
The read, right? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, the main was just something that I was working on for an example later, and it didn't come about. So you can ignore the main. It's just a very simplified version of read. And if you need it for an example, it's nice and clean. Do you all have the file json.js? I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
we
included.
do. You have JSON loader though.
Okay. The JSON loader is what we were using when page one loaded initially to throw some stuff into your local storage. And you should be doing that. You probably did that in VFW or MIU, just so you have something to write out. It ran automatically, or you had a button or a link that said load local storage. That's all that was about.
We actually wrote a conditional that all of us did this, but what it did was it looked to see if there was anything in local storage, and then it used JSON to populate. And I had questions about that because that's part of our get storage or get data functions. And also the toggle function is embedded in that function as well.
We will not need the data loaded to local storage after week 1. Project 2 in ASD will have you doing AJAX calls to external files. So that's how you're going to be getting data in Project 2. Project 3 has you reading data from CouchDB, and Project 4 has you reading, writing, updating, and deleting from CouchDB. So local storage is going to be not a concern of yours after this week. And there was much rejoicing.
Okay, but for this week, because there's a lot of things that we can do with JSON and jQuery. Should we just ignore that for this week and then do what we're doing with JavaScript on JSON?
I am confused by your question. What would you be ignoring? Just the process of reading it into local storage?
Yeah, we're using a standard JavaScript JSON.parse like key, and then we use stringify. But like I saw that there's a get JSON, a $.get.JSON function we can use, or a method.
Yeah, that is more related to the AJAX that we'll look at next week. I would say stick with the way that you're loading to local storage now. And if there is anything that you can change to jQuery in that statement, I don't remember exactly how it went. But yeah, just look at it piecemeal. If there's anything to update, you can. So the JSON or JSON loader.js that I gave you it from the GitHub has a bunch of junk in front of it. The before page or page before create. I just wanted to throw that in there to show you a different method that you can use. This is actually checking jQuery mobile and making a change to, or taking an action before your page has shown up. It happens so instantaneous that it seems like it's happening at the same time. But technically, this should be running the one.on page before create. Should be doing all this local storage stuff before your page actually shows. It's just, a millisecond before. What I'd like to point out, the difference between the JSON loader.js and JSON.js is going to be very important to you next week. So if you flip over to JSON.js, you'll notice there's not a bunch of junk at the beginning. It starts out with a curly brace. It has the word items, a colon, and then an array, and a big array with a bunch of data. And you'll see if you scroll down, it ends with a curly brace. There is no function calls in here. This is pure JSON. Make sure that when you're doing your external or XHR files for week 2, that you have pure JSON and you don't have functions or the word var equals. That will give you a hard time. And yes, Marianne asked if we can talk about the list when we clicked on that back button. If you notice, when we did the whole pop-up and we used the change page to go back to page 1, it sent us back to the page before we did any of our changes, loading in our data, doing that dynamic call to add the one item, and of course it didn't do our get local storage because we hadn't clicked that button yet. So all it really did, the change page, is take us back to the original state of that first page. We have a special guest visitor that wants to say hi. That is Rick. He is waving. It's getting late at night, so we're getting a little punchy. I think that's all I want to do with you guys tonight. I just wanted to really introduce you or make sure that, or clarify what's going on in JQM, because it's not natural, and it's not something that we've looked at in depth yet. MIU was concentrating on your user interface and getting it looking right, and really wasn't about what's going on in the back end. So I'm hoping that what you have now in your hands, what we've gone over, kind of get some ideas going on in your head how JQM is working and how you can work with what JQM is doing. So that's all I had for you. If you have any questions, now would be the time to ask. I'm going to hang around for a few minutes and answer all I can. I'm going to turn off the archive so I don't have hours and hours of video. But thank you guys for coming. If you don't have any questions, you can bail.
Thank you again, and have a good night.
You too.